like crazy. Everybody's trying to steal my lady. Spiders in the mirror and things can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night. To a blessed collision, still frozen tight. Spill drink is Cupid and the sound of her first chime. Why did you argue?
We're having a baby.
Dreaming of those eyes, best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, the world don't make a sound. The clock won't turn around. Slowing things down when I wanted to race. Catching up again when you try to chase. Feels like we're playing space.
Hey guys.
What's going on, legends? I guess the first question is, what are you doing sitting on a couch?
We're in a little apartment at the moment and everything will become a lot clearer in our future episodes. But for now we thought we'd sit down with you guys and talk about some of our decisions that we've had to make lately. As we are currently pregnant overseas and we've had to decide where we're going to have our child. So we thought we'd walk through that with you guys and let you know of our decision.
Nervous, actually. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's been a difficult process, I guess, and I guess when you look at the clock is ticking, you know, you need to be able to make these decisions because we only have 9 months to be able to prepare for this. And I got just a natural thought, I guess, of being a foreign national, you would return to your home country to have the child. And so we've been trying to put plans in motion for that to occur. And I guess there's just two options really. You can either sail back or you can fly back.
Yeah, so our first option was to sail back. That's the way that we wanted to do it. And we ran into a lot of hurdles. So the biggest hurdle at the start was Mali. Australia's quarantine is one of the most strictest in the world. You can't just bring an animal in there and in and out. Like, it's really difficult. But since everything has changed, we've had to try to get him back into Australia from Malaysia.
So we had to figure out a way of how we could get Marley to return to Australia.
Marley's booked in for his titer test this afternoon, so we're heading off to the vet. Oh, he loves cars so much. Yeah.
Happy to be in the car again, ain't you, buddy?
He loves the car. One foot in front of the other, we're making steps towards leaving Malaysia.
Yeah, I'm getting so confused already. Just exchanging emails with so many different people and speaking to so many different people and trying to organise his Marley's shipment, and then trying to figure out Australia as well. This COVID stuff is just next level.
Because we have an agent here, we have a New Zealand agent as well, and then we have a quarantine carer and then a post-quarantine carer.
And I was speaking to someone in Kuala Lumpur today as well for his transit.
Yeah.
And then organising a crate.
Yeah, and that's only the New Zealand side, and then there's the Australian side after that. So it's a very lengthy process.
Got a bit going on, eh? Bit going on.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, a titer test actually it's a blood test, and it looks at the antibodies in Marley's blood to make sure that his vaccinations have worked. The main one is rabies, to make sure that that has worked. So he definitely doesn't have rabies, and he has antibodies to prevent him from getting rabies as well. So
yeah, that's what they'll ask for. Like, so we have the sticker and the signed thing from the vet and everything to state that he had a rabies booster, but I know they still don't believe it, so you need to have a titer test to show that the vaccination is actually taking hold.
Yeah.
Such an idiot. In you go.
He knows it's the vet. Come on.
Come here.
Well, that was a little bit of a waste of time because it turns out we need an agent to look after Miley's blood as well. My God, there's just so many people involved in this. She said that the blood gets taken here, but it needs to be tested somewhere else. And so for that to happen, you need to have an agent to help ship the blood correctly, because otherwise, if it's done wrong, then it voids the test. So we've got a number that we have to call to help organise the blood. Anyway, we've got a huge this is just a puzzle that we need to put together.
It's the standard way, you know. You go to do something, you take one step forward and you take 2 steps back.
So this lady can help. It sounds like she's the be-all of end-all, so... Hello. Because we're sailing back to Australia, and we never expected to go back there, but because we want to bring Marley with us, of course, because he's part of the family. And so the easiest way to get him from Malaysia into Australia is by flying him to New Zealand first, because Australia no longer accepts dogs from Malaysia since the start of this year. And so now we need to go through New Zealand, and he'll have to do his 10-day quarantine when he reaches New Zealand, then spend 90 days in New Zealand before he can then fly to anywhere in Australia. So this process will take 3 months, but we need to prepare him to leave in September, which is 8 weeks away from now. So we need to just get all the documents in order to get Marley ready to fly to New Zealand, where he'll be looked after by a pet carer to then join us in Australia. But we have to just break it down into these steps. So first step is organising the export of him from Malaysia to Australia.
To New Zealand.
To New Zealand.
Yeah, it's all very complicated.
It's quite complicated, and
yeah.
This is why when we made the decision for Marley to come with us, we had never expected to return to Australia until we sailed around the world. But because of how circumstances have now changed, being the pandemic and the fact that Benita is up the duff, so things have changed, so we want to head back to Australia to have the baby, to wait out the pandemic, to still be able to travel and live on Nandji, and we want to have Marley with us because he's part of the family. So that by the time, if he leaves in September and Bubs is due at the start of February, so then big bro Marley will be there when Bub's birth comes out, which is pretty exciting. We want to have Marley there. He's part of it, you know. He's 7 years old and he's been right next to us for 7 years. So he's definitely not like every normal dog that lives in a backyard. He lives right next to us. He's our shadow. So he can't leave without our shadow. So yeah, it's really all worth the effort when we're in Australia having Bubs and Marley's right there sniffing. Sounds perfect.
Yeah. Oh, so handy.
So this is Marley's folder with all these documents. By staying in Langkawi for 6 months, Marley was then being able to be shipped from Malaysia to New Zealand.
Yeah, we found like a nice farm that would do all of this. So he'd spend the 10 days there, and then he'd have this huge paddock to run around with other dogs and everything. So it was a great place for Marley. We had that lined up.
How much do we love you, little man?
We got hit by another bomb this morning trying to organise everything with Marley's export. And so we have an exporting agent out of Langkawi to get to Kuala Lumpur, another agent from Kuala Lumpur to get to New Zealand, another agent in New Zealand who will accept him, put him in quarantine, and then a carer to look after him in New Zealand, and then the exporter agent to send him to Australia where we will collect him. But right, so that's 4 agents I've mentioned already. We're going in to see the first trip from Langkawi to Kuala Lumpur. We're going to go chat to her now because she's not answering our emails, which is generally the way, just to make life a little bit harder. So we'll go in to speak to her. Then we've been speaking to 2 different pet agents in Kuala Lumpur to be able to send him on to New Zealand. And the bomb we got hit with today is that one of them quoted us over 4,000 Australian dollars to have him sent from Kuala Lumpur to New Zealand, where we're expecting this whole ordeal will probably cost about 5 or 6. And to hear that they wanted to charge us 4,000 just for that one leg from Kuala Lumpur to New Zealand is not expected. Like, we are
stressing out now to figure out how we can do this. I believe he's quoted too much, because he's said in his quote he's charged per kilos, and he said for Marley and his crate to be up to 100 kilos, and that's what he's charged at. So that's like definitely way too much, considering Marley's 20 kilos max and the crate's 20 kilos max, so that's 40 kilograms, and then they've quoted for an extra 60 kilos on top. So I think this should be halved, but I don't know, that's just my assumptions upon it. So I've had to send emails back to him to wait to see what they say. But the other agent who I spoke to on the phone, who the vet advised us to use, I'm waiting to hear back from him, and hopefully he is a bit more reasonable and a bit more helpful. And yeah, that's the current circumstance. This was the reason why we never wanted to head back to Australia in the first place. Well, we'll just deal with this once when we got back after our years of sailing around the world. It's all adding up at the moment to enter Australia with our dog and just ourselves. It's like we might as well just spend all our money that we've worked hard and saved for however many years to try to fix Nandji and keep us going. It's all going on the line now just to get back to Australia to have our bubs. But we can't stay in Langkawi. Our visas run up at the end of August, and then we need to state our case, but you know, we can't just, a lot of yachties here in Malaysia will just skip between Thailand and Malaysia, so they just do their visas back and forth, but since all borders are closed these days, you can't just do that. So there's the very real scenario that come the end of August, we have 2 weeks to get out of here with nowhere to go. I guess all we can do is just continue to try to put these plans in motion and just have to face the music.
I was speaking to many different agents to make this happen, and sure enough, the quotes that come back was just ridiculous. The amount of money they're asking to pay, it would have been around 15,000 Australian dollars just for Marley to return, because Marley cannot return by sailboat. He needs to be out. He needs to fly into the country.
Yeah.
Animals are not allowed to enter Australia by sailboat.
Yeah.
So that was our option of $15,000, and you know, if you had that sort of money, you're not going to spend it on just getting our dog back to Australia.
Yeah,
So that's,
and then we would still, so at the moment, Australia, if you arrive by sailboat, you have to do 14 days quarantine in like a special...
a facility,
a facility
that you need to pay for.
Yeah.
So, on top of organising Marley to get back to Australia, which is going to be quite difficult, we need to organise what we are going to do as now, because the COVID crisis has put a lot more pressure on people returning back to Australia. So foreign nationals that are returning to Australia need to do a 14-day quarantine in a hotel, which used to be funded by the government. Our time at sea is not included as quarantine, so we could spend 2 weeks at sea and would still arrive to Australia and have to finish another 2 weeks of quarantine in the registered hotel. So this used to be paid for by the government, but now they are saying that if you're returning to Australia, you need to pay for it yourself, and that's $3,000 for one adult plus $1,000 for every additional adult. So that's like $4,000 for 2 weeks for us to stay back to Australia. That's just to enter into the country, and then you also have to pay the entering fees, which is like $300 as well. And so, but the difference is because we're coming by sea, and Nandji is our home. We don't have anywhere in Australia that we can call home. We don't have a residence in Australia. And we have Marley, who's also an Australian registered dog, but he's overseas. And because of the restrictions, he just can't come on the boat and sail back to Australia with us. So he needs to travel separately. Because of that, we need to stay here for a longer quarantine. We can't just simply jump on a plane like any other foreign national can and return to Australia. So that's basically what I'm doing now, is I'm writing to the government to seek exemption to having to pay the $4,000 for the reasons because we're overseas and we wanted to return to Australia. See, like other people have just decided that we'll just wait it out and we're not going home and we'll just spend it here, and their decision is that they just didn't want to jump on a plane, whereas we're different. So I believe that we should be exempt for needing to pay that amount of money. So
we're only returning because I'm pregnant.
And we're heading back to Australia only because of the simple fact that Benita is pregnant, and we want to have our baby in Australia because we are Australian citizens and we have the healthcare and everything else. So, yeah, I'm pleading a case and creating documents and basically making a case so I can give it to the government and see what they say. Like, I believe we should be exempt, but it's a different story what they say. And so as part of our argument, it's not only the fact that Benita is pregnant and we need to import our dog back to Australia, as well as bring her home so we have a residential address. The Prime Minister of Australia stated when the COVID crisis first said, any foreign flag or any Australian flag vessels that are overseas, don't try to sail back to Australia, stay put where you are. And so that is what we've done. But now, because the government don't want to pay for people's quarantine time anymore, they want to try to cover some costs, and now he's gone out and said, well, you've had plenty of time to get back to Australia, so now you need to pay for your quarantine. And so basically it's contradicting in itself. So I reckon we've got a pretty good argument. I just need to try to put it all into sophisticated words so it sounds like we've got something to fight the fight with. I don't know, like, what do you reckon? Do you reckon we've got a case? I don't know, I'm no lawyer and I'm not too good with words, but let's test it out, eh?
So just the entry for both Marley and us is around $20,000.
Around 20 grand.
And that's
just insanity, you know. We ended up preparing all our documents and sending it away back in end of May, June.
Yeah, it was as soon as we found out we were pregnant, we kind of got the ball rolling and contacted Australia. Yeah. And we've only just heard back from them
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get allowed in. We just got told that Benita needs to make her own application. I can't do it for her.
So how we
But come on, man.
How do you plan for stuff like this? The world is just so crazy at the moment, and everything is really hard and really expensive if you want to try to travel. Yeah. And I think it just got to the point where
sailing back was just too hard.
It was too much stress. Especially with Marley, we just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock. Yeah. And then I think the final straw was Marley had to get a tide test done, which is blood work to prove that he was vaccinated against rabies and he had antibodies in his system. So, and just sending the blood work to the lab would cost $3,000, and I think that was just the last straw. I was just oh.
I was speaking to the guy on the phone. I'm like, "Are you serious, mate? Are you having me on here?
$3,000. So
I'm not paying that."
And so even just to organise Marley, we had 4 agents. It all just became way too stressful, and I think I was 13. I can't remember how far along I was when we decided.
It was just it was way too hard to try to sail back.
Yeah.
And so then we looked into how we're going to fly back. And then if you're going to fly back, as you all know, flights currently, airlines are just cancelling flights all over the place. Yeah. And then when we went back to Australia for Christmas last year, we did find a good dog carer in Thailand where we were willing to leave Marley. Yeah. But the fact that the borders are closed between Malaysia and Thailand, so we can't get Marley to Thailand. There was no decent dog carer we could find here in Malaysia. So that was just out of the question. We're not going to leave Marley. And then we'd have to find a place to leave Nandji. But then if we can get a flight back to Australia, then we can't leave Australia. So we're going to be leaving our dog and boat overseas.
So at the moment, Australia are not letting Australians fly out of the country. So if we went back home, we don't know when we're going to be allowed back out again. So for an undisclosed amount of time, we're going to be away from Nandji and Marley.
You're kidding.
And that is just, and it seemed it'll probably clear up by mid next year. But that's just changing all the time. So
it's just an unknown. So we're not going to, if we go back to Australia, we'd have to, and even if we flew back in, we still have to spend that money of quarantine plus the extra expensive flights. And so we'd still have to do quarantine, and then we're still in Australia where we don't have a home, we don't have a car, we don't have anything in Australia. You know? Our home is Nandji. Marley's part of the family, and so it just totally makes sense that why would we leave those things behind when we could stay together in our house as a family.
Yeah. So I guess, it's been a really hard decision to make. Like, you know, my family don't have any grandchildren yet, so this is their first grandchild. And, you know, it's a bit upsetting not being able to share that, like, with them, like, personally. I know we have, like, we can, you know, Skype and stuff online, but, just not being able to experience this with them is like a very hard thing, but at the end of the day they still get a grandchild, and you know.
And so obviously we made the decision that we're going to be having a Malaysian baby, and we found a very nice hospital, and we found a good doctor that you're happy with.
They have a fantastic private healthcare system here, and they have, you know, you can go online and choose
your doctor.
Yeah, they have like, it's kind of like choosing your player on a video game, and they have all of their stats, and they have their degrees and reviews, and you can see a photo of them and everything. So you can. I chose a really good doctor, and got a really good hospital as well. And and
then the hospitals offer birthing packages where you pay up front for like a service. You know, so you get like nurses, and then follow up after the birth, and then you get a private room for 3 nights and 4 days, or this sort of stuff, you know. It's very interesting. And then obviously you do speak with the doctor, and it's arranged in how the birthing will go and what they think will happen. But I just thought that was quite very interesting.
And another fantastic thing about Malaysia is that every baby that's born here, whether it's a foreign national or a Malaysian child, they for 10 days after the baby is born, they have nurses sent out to the home where the baby is, and they help with like nursing and follow-up. So you have that support network and care after having the baby, which is really nice and comforting. Like as our first child, I'm sure we're gonna
be taught a few things. I know in Australia childbirth would be free, but here in the private hospital we will have to pay, but it's very affordable, and it's definitely a lot cheaper to have a baby here in Malaysia than what it is to try to go back to Australia and have it. And then I know if we had it in Australia, they'd just be kicking us out the door as quick as we could anyway. Whereas here, there's definitely a lot of care, and there's a service provided, which is very comforting, isn't it?
Yeah, so we were having a baby overseas. Oh my God. This is not how we planned to go. This is not what we planned.
Definitely not how we planned. But it just leads us into a new chapter and stuff that now we can get super busy and plan for the future. And Malaysia was super kind as a host country for us. They've extended our visas. We don't need to do anything until the end of December, where the movement control order will be evaluated again, and it could very much be extended, the countries surrounding. So
but we had like a fantastic time in Malaysia so far. Everyone is so lovely, and we really are so grateful to be here. Like we feel
definitely we've been very lucky, and I think we made some smart decisions early on this year. I'm sure we made plenty of bad ones, but there was definitely a smart one in just waiting to see what would happen and staying here in Malaysia. So that's the big deal.
The other thing is, unfortunately, Malaysia don't allow dual citizenship. So our child will be an Australian born in Malaysia. They make you choose. You're either Malaysian or Australian. So I think to make life a lot easier in the future, I think we're just going to keep it an Australian child.
Unfortunately, it can't be dual citizenship. Malaysia is one of the few countries in the world, I think, that actually do that. They make you choose. But so that's very interesting in itself. So we're going to have a little Malaysian-Australian child. We're looking forward to it.
So we're 6 months along now. Like this is like a real live update right now. So I'm not 6 months pregnant in the episodes.
In the episodes coming up. But that'll bring you up to a bit more speed of what's been going on in our lives, and then these next few episodes will bring you up to why we're sitting on a couch.
It is hard. We don't have our friends and our family here with us, but we do still have a support network. Like we've met a lot of yachties along the way that are very supportive and helpful and lovely, and We have you guys online as well, so we're really grateful for all of the support and like encouragement and stuff that you guys have put out there. So
yeah, we have to say a big thanks to that. It means a lot when people send us some nice well wishes, and it's good to know that we do have that support network, because like it's just us sitting here.
And we're pretty emotional right now. Well, one of us is.
One of us is. The other ones needs to find space sometimes. So that's an update, legends. That's what's going on.
Yeah. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, and you can follow us on our other social media as well. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook as well. So here's the links, guys.
Yeah, and stay tuned for more videos coming up soon. We start to do a bit of sailing coming up.
Whoa.
So
hang on.
all right, good on you, legends.
All right, see you guys.
Catch ya.